Complexity is killing your YouTube videos. And on top of that, it's stopping you from getting millions of views. So most creators fail not because they're boring, it's because they're too smart for their own good, right? So the issue is not that they aren't good enough or they don't know enough. It's that they're going too deep to the point where they lose like 80-90% of their audience because the audience doesn't get it, right? The content that works the best and that gets the most views isn't specifically the most valuable content. It's the most basic stuff that is universally like understood as good advice or golden nuggets, right? That's why, for example, in your niches, you'll look at content and a lot of it's similar stuff, but a lot of it is very basic, like beginner friendly stuff, because the biggest audience you can target are beginners. If you try and like go really complex and really deep and really show off how much you know, you're actually doing yourself a disservice because you're targeting thousands of experts when you could be targeting hundreds of thousands of beginners. It's like this quote that I really like where it's like, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it enough, right? If you can't dumb down a concept to the point where anyone can understand it, you're not good enough at what you're doing, at what you're talking about, right? You need to really master something. You need to be able to break it down to like the most simple level. Now let's talk about advanced versus beginner content, right? So it's a TAM problem, right? So it's a total addressable market, right? So with beginners, there's always going to be way more beginners than experts. So just targeting beginners, you're going to have more people. You're going to have more people that can click on your video in the first place. On top of that, you want to make content that anyone can understand. So there's a reason why people say, you know, you want your stuff to be 8th grade, like learning level, right? Like one of the biggest hacks, for example, for websites, like a way to get more people to convert through your website is just to make the jargon, the language on your website, an 5th grader level so that most people can understand. I'm pretty sure 50% of Americans can't read better than a 6th grade level, right? So it's like by making your website or your video overcomplicated, you're alienating 50% of the US just off the bat, right? So the big thing is like making it so that anyone can understand, anyone with a 5th grade like reading level can understand. And an easy way to do that is just like once you have a script or once you have a video, throw it into ChatGPT and just get it to break it down. Be like, yo, can you break this down in a 5th grade level? Or can you rate my script at like what level of reading it's currently at? And then it'll be like, oh, it's a 12th grade level. Now you need to bring it down, right? Here's a great example that I really like. We have this YouTuber, Danny, right? So he does coding videos. So he codes games, right? Now, one thing he realized that's really funny is if you look at his old videos, he would do very specific gaming videos where he would just talk about like how to code a game, right? And what he realizes, and you know what we're getting to, is that when you target coders, there's a lot of coders, but there's more consumers than coders, right? What videos did the best for him was content where he kind of skipped through the complexity of how to code and the technical jargon of coding, and he simplified it into just making games, right? Into just making funny games and focusing on the storytelling of making the game versus explaining how to actually make a game. And that resulted in his videos being able to reach millions of people while more niche coding videos can only reach like hundreds of thousands. Now, the harsh truth is that the best YouTubers aren't the smartest YouTubers. The best YouTubers are the YouTubers who can take information and make it the most digestible. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, to get the most views and to be the biggest in your space, it's not about how much you know and how good you are. It's about how you can communicate, how well you can communicate your ideas, right? So that's why you'll see a lot of times you'll have maybe more beginners that are just really good at communicating blow up really quickly in a space, in a niche, because they can just communicate their process that's relatable to beginners versus an expert will just yap at a camera and it goes nowhere because no one can understand what he's saying or it doesn't target to a massive audience, right? So the big thing there is communication. And like what I like to do is I like to like hyper focus on like, how can I improve my communication? So, first, break it down, tons of courses, tons of books you can read, tons of resources on YouTube specifically, right? But it's just really being like, even there, right? Really being like, how do I take notes on where I'm currently at with my communication and break it down, whether I talk too fast or I use too big of words, right? Or I'm not breaking something down enough to where it's easy to understand. So being able to identify that and then break it down and then, being able to just communicate to the best way possible is going to find you a lot more success on YouTube versus specifically just being the best at something.